Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Don from 1A Auto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And the next time you need a part for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a rear axle on this 2002 Suburban. Pretty much the same for any 2006 Suburban, Tahoe, GMC Yukon, as well as the 1500 Silverado and Sierra. We show you kind of the process is the same for both sides. We'll kind of show you taking the brakes apart on the passenger side and the axle on the left side, and there are lots of different tools needed.
Start off by loosening up these lug nut covers, and we'll fast forward as Don does this. And once those are all loosened up, you can pull the hubcap free. And now you want to loosen the lug nuts preliminarily, raise the vehicle and remove them the rest of the way. Unless you have air-powered tools, you can do it. Now remove these two 12mm bolts, and we'll fast forward as Don does that.
Loosen up your rotor. Either use a C-clamp to squeeze it or a screwdriver through the middle of it and pry between the caliper and the brake disc, and that loosens up the caliper so it comes off easier.
Now pry out the brake pads. Now remove these two 18mm bolts and just use a piece of pipe to help break it free. And then we'll just fast forward as Don removes those two bolts. Now pull your caliper bracket off. Pull the rotor off.
Now on the differential cover, there are either 10 to 12 bolts, and ours are pretty rusty, so we use a cold chisel to knock the rust off of each side. These should be 13mm bolts if they're in good shape. We actually end up using a 1/2-inch socket because the rust has actually reduced their size just a little bit. So you'll see later we pound a 1/2-inch socket on there and are able to get them all off.
And we'll just fast forward here as Mike removes that bolt the rest of the way. And then he's just going to repeat the procedure on each of those other bolts all the way around the differential cover. And for the higher ones, it does get a little more difficult, and you will need an extension for your socket and ratchet to actually remove those bolts. Make sure you have a drip pan below the differential cover before you remove the last of the bottom bolts. And you want to just remove those. Now using your chisel, just hammer out on the bottom of the diff cover. And then replace the bolt at the top of the differential cover. And then use your chisel and hammer again on the other side. And just let the fluid drain out. Now after it's drained for a while, just pry out on the bottom. And then remove that bolt. and then pull the cover down and out. Now, if any debris falls down inside of here, as you can see right there, you just want to vacuum all of it out. And then take a rag, make sure it's somewhat clean, and just wipe everything down, and just stick this rag back in there. And then using a razor blade, just cut off that old gasket along the outside. And then just use a wire brush to get any leftover residue of the gasket.
At this point, you'll probably want to have your vehicle in neutral. Rotate the chuck around so you can see that 8mm bolt right there, and remove the 8mm bolt. And then this pin will come down and out. And now push your axle in, and then again you're going to want to have your vehicle in neutral so you can use the drive shaft and rotate the chuck around so you can see into where the C-clamps are.
And you can see that there's a clip on either side that holds either axle in. So what you want to do is just use a stick magnet to pull the clip out on the axle you want to replace. There it is. And then the axle will just pull free.
And slide your axle into place. You want to lift it up, careful not to drag it on the seal too much. You don't want to prematurely wear out the seal. And then once it gets into the machined area, then kind of grab the axle, and I'm actually lifting up the inside of the axle where it goes into the carrier bearings on the inside. And you just got to find the right spot. And once you do, it goes right in, and then make sure you push it all the way in so you can get the C-clamp on the other side. Okay, now put the C-clip back in place. You'll have to make sure that the axle is pushed in further than it should go. And then once you have it in place, you'll want to pull the axle back out, and the C-clamp goes into place.
Now, we're using a new differential cover, so we have a separate gasket, but if you're using your old differential cover, you want to make sure the RTV goes all the way around and that there's no gaps in it. And you can see ours does have a gap, but because of the other gasket that won't matter. And make sure you circle each bolt hole. Make sure there's no fluid on the outside here. And then take your differential cover and feed it up into place. And you want to just replace the top bolt to hold it in. And then we'll just fast forward as he replaces the rest of the bolts. And make sure for this top bolt that you put this harness back into place. Then let the gasket sit for a minute if you used RTV, and then tighten each of those bolts up. And then you want to just torque each of these to 15 foot-pounds in a crossing pattern. Now remove this filler plug using your 3/8 ratchet, and ours is in kind of rough condition, so we're just going to hammer the ratchet into place. And then just remove that plug. Now replace the differential fluid, and you want to just do this until it starts to pour over the side. And when it starts to pour over the side, you can just put your pinky in there and make sure that the fluid's right to the top of the filler hole. And if it is, then you're all set and you can replace your cap. Now just tighten it up with your ratchet. And you're all set. Slide your new rotor into place. And then twist on a lug nut to just hold the rotor in place while you put the caliper bracket back on. And then put your caliper bracket back into place and replace those two 18mm bolts. You're gonna do it back. And we'll fast forward as Don tightens those up. And you want to torque these to about 85 foot-pounds. Push your brake pads back into place. Back up. And then put your caliper back down into place. And replace those two 12mm bolts. And we'll just fast forward as Don does this and tightens them up. And you want to tighten these to about 30 foot-pounds. Put your wheel back into place. And then replace your lug nuts and tighten them preliminarily. And we'll fast forward as Don does this. And then torque each of the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds in a crossing pattern. Then replace that hubcap and tighten up each of your lug nut covers. And before taking the vehicle out on the road, you want to just pump the brake pedal until it firms up, and then do a stopping test from 5 miles per hour, then 10 miles per hour, and you're all set.
We hope this video helps you out. Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free, 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.